There's been multiple times, it's actually almost every time we get on a plane, he'll get sat next to,
David Heavy D. Sparks is one of the most successful builders in the country. His trucks were bigger, his shows were louder, and his business seemed to keep growing no matter what happened. To fans, it looked like nothing could slow him down. But behind the cameras, his life was starting to fall apart in ways no one expected. Heavy D was hit with a legal fight that refused to end, money problems that kept getting worse, and a moment with the law that left him scarred for life. And just when it seemed like it couldn't get any worse, the part of his life he cared about most, his family, was hit with a blow he might never recover from. The rise of Heavy D. For years, David Sparks built a reputation as someone who could turn massive machines and diesel trucks into something almost unbelievable. To millions of fans, he is simply known as Heavy D, the energetic leader of the Diesel Brothers crew, a man famous for building giant trucks, breaking records, and living life louder than most people. But lately, the story surrounding Heavy D has taken a much darker turn. David Sparks was born on January 5, 1985, in the Layton and Salt Lake City area. Sparks was the fourth child in his family and grew up alongside three siblings. As a boy, he spent countless hours in his grandfather's garage, surrounded by tools, engines, and pieces of machinery waiting to be repaired. For many kids, a garage might have been boring, but for Sparks, it felt like a playground. He was fascinated by anything with wheels or an engine, whether it was an old truck, a motorcycle, or a piece of heavy equipment. He wanted to understand how it worked. Those long hours watching and learning slowly turned into real skills. By the time he reached high school, Sparks already knew that working with machines was what he loved most. While many students focused on traditional classes, he spent most of his time studying auto mechanics, welding, and fabrication. Auto mechanics quickly became one of his favorite subjects. Instead of just reading about engines, he wanted to take them apart, rebuild them, and push them further than they were meant to go. But just as he was beginning to figure out his path, his life was shaken by a painful loss. When Sparks was 21 years old, his father passed away due to a brain tumor. His father had undergone several surgeries, but the illness eventually took his life. For Sparks, the timing of that loss was devastating. He was just entering adulthood, trying to build a career and define his future. Losing his father at that stage forced him to grow up quickly. People who knew him later said the experience hardened his determination. Instead of slowing down, Sparks pushed forward even harder, determined to build something meaningful with his life. Before focusing completely on business, he spent time serving a religious mission in South America. Sparks traveled through jungle regions of Bolivia and Brazil, working with communities and learning about life far outside the world he had grown up in. During that time, he also developed a surprising skill. He became fluent in both Spanish and Portuguese, eventually becoming multilingual alongside his native English. The experience broadened his perspective and exposed him to cultures and challenges very different from those back home in Utah. When Sparks returned to the United States, he began focusing on work. One of his first major opportunities came through a close friend and mentor named Rich Eggett. Sparks was hired to manage an ATV and motorcycle rental business. It might not have looked glamorous from the outside, but the job gave him hands-on experience. Day after day, he worked on machines, repaired equipment, and learned the practical side of mechanical work. Around the same time, Sparks briefly enrolled at Weber State University. His studies focused on welding, mechanics, fabrication, and diesel technology. But the classroom environment did not last long for him. After only one semester, he made the decision to drop out, convinced that he could learn more by working in the real world than by sitting in lectures. So he went back to doing what he loved most, building things. Sparks began operating heavy equipment for his uncle's construction company. The work involved excavation projects, moving earth, and shaping landscapes with massive machinery. It was demanding work, but it fit his personality perfectly. Eventually, Sparks began running his own small excavation business. His company specialized in landscaping projects like building rock walls, constructing waterfalls, and shaping outdoor spaces with heavy equipment. Slowly, Sparks began building a reputation as someone who could operate big machines and get the job done. But the next turning point in his life came in 2008 when he hired his first employee, his best friend, David Kiley. Most people now know him by a different name, Diesel Dave. The two men had originally met at a young singles event at a local church. What began as a friendship quickly turned into a business partnership. Kiley joined Sparks' excavation company to help operate heavy equipment and assist with the growing workload. Before long, they realized they shared a much bigger idea. Instead of only working in construction, they wanted to build something centered entirely around diesel trucks. So together, they launched a new company called Diesel Sellers in 2008. The business began as a small used car lot, but quickly developed a very specific focus: custom diesel trucks. Sparks and Kiley began buying trucks, modifying them, and turning them into powerful, attention-grabbing machines. Over time, they brought in additional team members, including Keaton Hoskins and Joshua Stewart, who helped around the shop. At first, the business was still relatively small, but everything began to change when they started posting videos online. The team began uploading content to YouTube, showing their custom builds, wild experiments, and the chaotic humor that defined their personalities. And just like that, their channel exploded in popularity. Across all social media platforms, the Diesel Brothers brand reached over 10 million followers and billions of views. Their videos caught the attention of the team behind The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. Soon after, Sparks and his crew were invited to appear on the show. For a group of truck builders from Utah, it was a massive moment. And that appearance opened the door to something even bigger. Shortly after the broadcast, executives from the Discovery Channel reached out. They wanted to build an entire television show around the Diesel Brothers and their truck-building world. The result was Diesel Brothers, a reality series that premiered on Discovery Channel on January 4, 2016. The show followed the crew as they repaired, customized, and sometimes completely reinvented massive pickup trucks. Over 6 seasons and 49 episodes, viewers watched the team push trucks to ridiculous extremes, often turning ordinary vehicles into giant, record-breaking machines. By 2020, Sparks had reached another milestone in his personal life. That year, he moved his family into a dream home in Utah. From the outside, it looked like the ultimate success story. But not long after that dream home was built, something happened that would shake Sparks' world in a way few people expected. And the same fame that helped build the Diesel Brothers empire would soon pull Heavy D into a legal battle that would change his life forever. The legal fallout that changed everything. By the time David Heavy D Sparks became famous through Diesel Brothers, the Diesel Sellers shop in Utah had already turned into a full business operation. On television, the work looked like harmless fun, lifting trucks higher, adding power, and pushing diesel engines to their limits. But outside the show, not everyone saw it that way. In 2016, a group in Utah decided to take legal action that would eventually become one of the most serious challenges Sparks had ever faced. The group was called Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment, often known as UPHE. It was not a government agency, but but a nonprofit organization made up of doctors and health professionals. Their focus was on air quality along Utah's Wasatch Front, an area known for heavy winter pollution caused by temperature inversions that trap smog close to the ground. For years, the group had been pushing for stricter enforcement of environmental rules. When they began watching episodes of Diesel Brothers, they noticed something that immediately concerned them. The trucks on the show often produced large amounts of black smoke. To fans, it looked dramatic. To the doctors, it looked illegal. They believed the vehicles had been modified in ways that bypassed emissions controls. In the diesel world, that practice is often called rolling coal, when a truck is altered to release thick exhaust smoke on purpose. Instead of waiting for regulators to act, the group used a part of the law that allowed private citizens to file their own case. Under the Federal Clean Air Act, individuals or organizations can bring what is known as a citizen lawsuit if they believe someone is violating emissions rules and the government has not taken action. These lawsuits do not require proof that the person intended to break the law. If a prohibited modification is made or sold, the violation can still apply. Using that provision, the group filed a civil complaint against the Diesel Brothers. The lawsuit accused the shop of several different violations. According to the filing, the company had removed pollution control equipment from diesel trucks, installed parts designed to defeat emission systems, sold vehicles that no longer met legal standards, sold those parts to customers, and operated trucks in Utah that were not compliant with emissions rules. The case did not just name the business, it named individuals. The defendants included David Sparks, Joshua Stewart, and Keaton Hoskins, who were all involved in the company's operations. David "Diesel Dave" Kiley was mentioned in media reports, but the legal responsibility focused mainly on Sparks and Stewart as business operators. At first, the defense tried to minimize the scope of the problem. Attorney Cole Cannon argued that the number of trucks involved was small compared to the size of the business. He said some of the vehicles had already been modified before the shop acquired them and that the situation was being exaggerated. He also pointed to the group's role in the community, saying the Diesel Brothers had contributed to local causes and charities, and that those efforts should be considered alongside the accusations. However, the case moved forward anyway. In June 2018, U.S. District Judge Robert J. Shelby issued an order that immediately restricted what the defendants were allowed to do. The order blocked them from modifying trucks in ways that increased pollution and also prohibited selling vehicles that did not meet emissions standards. For the first time, the business that had built its reputation on extreme truck builds was facing direct limits from a federal court. But the ruling was only the beginning. In March 2020, the court reached a much more serious conclusion. Judge Shelby ruled that the Diesel Brothers had violated the Clean Air Act and Utah state law. The decision confirmed that the shop had removed emissions control devices and sold trucks that did not comply with legal requirements. The financial penalty followed, and the court ordered a total fine of around $851,000. Most of the money was directed to the United States government, while a smaller portion went to Davis County, Utah. The ruling stated that hundreds of violations had been documented during the investigation. But the case was not finished yet. In January 2021, the court added another penalty. Sparks and Stewart were ordered to pay more than $928,000 in attorney fees to the group that brought the lawsuit. The legal team had originally asked for even more, but the judge reduced the amount after reviewing the request. When the fines and fees were combined, the total financial impact passed $1.7 million. During the case, Sparks argued that the pollution from the trucks was minor compared to other sources of smog in Utah. The court rejected that argument, ruling that the law did not allow exceptions based on the size of the impact. He also said publicly that he did not support extreme smoke-producing modifications and that the industry needed to act responsibly. But the court focused on the actual work that had been done, not the statements. Along with the fines, the judge issued a permanent injunction. The order banned the defendants from removing emissions equipment, installing defeat devices, selling illegal vehicles, or operating trucks that violated the Clean Air Act. If they broke those rules again, the court warned they could be held in contempt, which could lead to even harsher penalties, including the possibility of jail time. For Heavy D, the case was devastating. It brought heavy fines, strict restrictions, and a level of scrutiny the Diesel brothers had never faced before. And not long after the courtroom fight ended, another incident would put Sparks in trouble again. This time, it would be worse than the legal battle. The tragic 2025 arrest. By 2025, the legal case over the diesel truck modifications looked like it had finally settled down. But the court case was not finished. In fact, the biggest problem was not the original penalty, but what happened after. According to court records, the problem was the unpaid attorney fees that had been ordered after the Clean Air Act lawsuit. The court had required Sparks and the other defendants to pay the legal costs awarded to the group that brought the case. However, those payments did not happen the way the court expected. In June 2024, more than 3 years after the order, a judge found that the defendants had still not paid the required amount. Because of that, the court ruled that Sparks and the others were in contempt of court. The ruling did not end there. In January 2025, the court issued another order. This time, the judge required Sparks and the other defendants to provide financial documents and other information to the plaintiffs. The purpose was to determine how the money could be collected and whether assets had been moved or hidden. The order also included a warning. If the defendants did not comply, the court could take stronger action, including arrest. When the required information was not provided on time, another enforcement order followed. And in August 2025, the case took a turn that shocked many people who followed the Diesel brothers. The court found Sparks in contempt again. This time, the issue involved property transfers that were not allowed under the previous order. According to the ruling, Sparks had not provided the information the court required, and certain actions had been taken, even though restrictions were already in place. Because of repeated non-compliance, the judge decided stronger action was necessary. On October 2, 2025, a federal judge in Utah signed a bench warrant for Sparks. The document stated that the court had already tried every other method to force compliance with its orders. Because those attempts had failed, the judge ordered that Sparks be taken into custody until he followed the instructions required to clear the contempt finding. 5 days later, the order was carried out. On October 7, 2025, Sparks was arrested in Salt Lake City, Utah. The arrest was handled by U.S. Marshals, not local police, which showed the seriousness of the situation. He was taken to the Salt Lake County Jail and booked into custody. Reports later said the arrest happened while he was preparing to travel for an event connected to the state of Utah. Instead of boarding a plane, he was taken to jail. The news spread quickly online. For someone known for building trucks, filming television shows, and speaking at public events, the image of being arrested on a federal contempt order was a shocking moment. His attorney responded soon after the arrest, making it clear that Sparks had not been charged with a crime. The case was still a civil matter, not a criminal one. Even so, being taken into custody placed Sparks in a situation he had never faced before. 2 days later, on October 9, 2025, a hearing was held to address the contempt order. During the proceedings, the two sides met privately and worked out an agreement. The court required Sparks to provide certain financial disclosures within a short period of time. Once that agreement was made, the judge ordered his release. After spending several days in jail, Sparks was allowed to leave custody, but the case itself was not completely over. He still had to follow the conditions set by the court. Not long after his release, Sparks addressed the situation publicly. On social media, he described the experience as one of the most difficult moments of his life. He said he had spent several days in isolation while in custody, and he spoke about the stress the legal fight had placed on him and his family. He also defended his position in the lawsuit. According to Sparks, the dispute was not simply about refusing to pay money. He argued that the case had become larger than the original issue, and that the legal process had been pushed further than it should have been. He said he believed the situation involved aggressive legal tactics and that he had chosen to fight rather than give in immediately. He also admitted that mistakes had been made earlier in his business career, especially during the years when the shop was building extreme diesel trucks. He said those decisions had led to the problems that followed, even though he did not agree with every part of the penalties that came later. And while the legal fight was finally beginning to slow down, another problem was developing in his personal life. This time, the trouble had nothing to do with trucks, courts, or television. Instead, it involved his marriage. The tragedy of Heavy D's marriage. For most of his rise to fame, David Heavy D. Sparks kept one part of his life almost completely out of the spotlight. While his trucks, his business, and his television career were all public, his family life stayed mostly private. Fans saw the loud personality on screen, but very little of the man at home. At the center of that private life was his wife, Ashley Sparks. The two met in 2008 at a church in Utah, long before the television show, the YouTube fame, or the legal battles that would come later. At the time, Sparks was still building his business and trying to figure out what his future would look like. Ashley was in her early 20s, living in the same close-knit Utah community, and their relationship grew out of shared faith and similar values. They dated for about 2 years, and in August 2010, they got married in Utah. At that point, Sparks was still far from the fame that would come later. But over the next several years, their family grew. They had 3 children together. Their daughter, Charlie Mae, was born first, followed by their sons, Bo and Mac. As Sparks's career expanded, Ashley took on the role of primary caregiver at home. While he spent long hours working, filming, and traveling, she focused on raising the children and keeping the family stable. Unlike her husband, Ashley rarely appeared in front of the cameras. Even during the height of Diesel Brothers, she stayed mostly out of the public eye. Those who followed Sparks closely knew that his wife preferred privacy and avoided the spotlight whenever possible. For years, the marriage appeared solid, but behind the scenes, the pressure surrounding Sparks' career was growing heavier. The legal case, the fines, the public criticism, and the stress of running a large business all happened during the same period his family life was changing. One small moment hinted that things were not as perfect as they looked. In August 2021, Ashley shared a message online while celebrating 11 years of marriage. The post sounded positive, but it also suggested that their relationship had gone through difficult periods. She talked about how marriage has ups and downs, and how no relationship is perfect, even when 2 people love each other deeply. At the time, the message did not seem unusual. Many couples talk about challenges after more than a decade together. But looking back, the timing stood out. The post came only a year after the court ruling that forced Sparks and his business partners to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines and legal fees. The stress from the lawsuit had not only affected his career, it had also followed him home. Over the next few years, Sparks continued working, filming, and building projects, but the legal fight never completely went away. And after the arrest in 2025, the pressure got even worse. Sadly, in 2026, the situation reached a point where the marriage itself began to fall apart. On March 10, 2026, Ashley Sparks filed for divorce. According to court records, she was the one who initiated the legal process. The filing did not list a detailed reason for the separation, which is common in many divorce cases. The news came quietly at first, but once it became public, it surprised many fans who had followed Sparks for years. There was no immediate comment from him after the reports appeared. For someone used to sharing his life online, the silence was noticeable. People close to the situation began pointing to several possible reasons behind the split. Some said it could have been financial strain from years of legal battles. Others noted that running a business while dealing with constant legal pressure can affect every part of life, including relationships. There was also the weight of public attention. Sparks was not just a husband and father. He was a television personality, a business owner, and a public figure. Every mistake became news, and living under that kind of scrutiny can make even normal problems feel larger. By 2026, the couple had been together for almost 18 years. They had built a life, raised children, and gone through both success and hardship. Sometimes the same experiences that bring people together in the beginning can slowly push them apart later. For Sparks, the situation created a new challenge. This was another chapter in a long series of setbacks. And with so many things changing at once, the question is, where does Heavy D go from here? And what does his life actually look like now? Where is Heavy D now? From the outside, it might seem like Heavy D's life collapsed at once. But unlike some public figures who disappear after controversy, Sparks has not stepped away completely. He is still working, still running businesses, and still trying to keep the brand he built alive. The difference is that things no longer look as big as they once did. One place where that change can be seen is his YouTube presence. The Diesel Brothers channel is still active, and videos continue to appear online as of 2026. The audience is still there, and the fan base has not disappeared. But the pace and energy are not the same as during the early years when the channel was growing fast, and every new build felt bigger than the last. The videos now feel more like maintenance than expansion. Another project that once looked like a major new chapter was the launch of a company called EMBR Motors. In February 2024, Sparks announced that he had acquired the rights to the Nikola Badger project after the original company canceled it several years earlier. The plan sounded ambitious. The company talked about building hydrogen-powered trucks, electric off-road vehicles, and even personal watercraft. At the time, it looked like the start of a completely new direction, something that could move him beyond custom diesel builds and into the world of advanced vehicles. But since that announcement, very little information has been released about the project. There have been no major updates about production, no confirmed release dates, and no clear sign that the vehicles are close to being finished. As of 2026, the idea still exists, but the progress remains uncertain. Back in Utah, Sparks Motors is still operating. The shop in Woods Cross has not closed, and the business continues to build custom vehicles. However, the permanent court order from the Clean Air Act case still limits the type of modifications the company can do. The trucks can no longer be built the same way they were during the early Diesel Brothers years, when extreme smoke and heavy modifications were part of the brand. Alongside the shop, Sparks continues to run his merchandise and lifestyle brand. Clothing, hats, and other products connected to the Diesel Brothers name are still sold online. The brand has become one of the steady sources of income that remains even when television projects slow down. The biggest question people ask, though, is about money. At the height of his career, estimates placed Sparks' net worth much higher than it appears today. Before the lawsuits and penalties, some reports suggested his fortune could be around $8 million. Those numbers came from the success of the television show, the YouTube channel, the truck builds, and the merchandise business. After the legal battle, those estimates dropped sharply. Later reports placed his net worth closer to $2 million, though the exact number is difficult to confirm. The reality likely falls somewhere in between, depending on the value of his businesses and properties. Today, Heavy D is still working, still building, and still posting videos. But the man who once looked like he was only going up is now in a very different place than anyone imagined when the Diesel brothers first became famous. Do you think the lawsuits against Heavy D are fair? Drop your answers in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. And if you enjoy this video, please click on the next one on your screen.